Welcome to this demo of LEANalyser. In this video, we will take you through a typical data analytics case of transactional data. We will import various data sources, connect them with each other, and create a profitability analysis. We have opened up a new analysis in LEANalyser. Let's drag and drop some transactional data into the data area. We're currently in load mode, but let's move over to prepare. We can directly see that we've imported about 700,000 rows, and the tool have recognized the data types. We can quickly get an overview about our data by looking at its profile. We see how many values there are, how many unique values. We have 74 customers here, and the most common one we have right there. By clicking it, we can see all those customers listed here. To make the dataset more comprehensible, let's add some more descriptive information of the data. So I can add another table with the employees, their names, their positions. I can also add the names of the products and a category like that. And I also have my customer register in a file, so I can either drop it like I did before, or I can connect to it if, for instance, it's in a database somewhere else. So let's add another data source, connect to my, in this case, SQL database. And select the table I'm interested in. I add the table to my database and rename it if I wish. I now have my 4 tables, and let's see how these relate to each other. Let's have a look at the data model. LEANalyser has managed to link these together via their common fields. So here we have the product number that is linked to the product number in the product table, and so forth. I can of course edit these links either if I want to remove one or if I want to add one manually. Let's go back to my transactional data and have a look at the customers. If I scroll down a bit, I'll find values here that are marked in red. If I look at the profile, I'll find that they have so-called broken links. This means that they have no matching value in the other table they link to. It can either be that they are really missing a value in the other table, or it's just a typo. So LEANalyser will help us with this, to fix these. To the left you have the broken link, and to the right you have a proposition from LEANalyser about a good match. So let's just correct these. Now we see that we have no more broken links, and LEANalyser just corrected over 55,000 values. Let's move over to analysis. We have 3 different types of analysis in LEANalyser: the list analysis, pivot analysis, and time analysis. Let's start with the list analysis. We select our main table, and then we can add other data from the related tables. So in this case, we want to add the names of the employees beside the number, and also the position. This is done as follows. I could also add the country of the customer, and the product category. All this is done via the links that we have between the tables. So this is how you can gather data from different places into one big table. You can of course save this table for further use in another analysis, or export your data if you want to use it somewhere else. Let's now have a look at the pivot analysis. After you've selected your main table, LEANalyser will always propose you something to start with. Let's have a look at the measures first. Under Values, you define your measures. You first select which field you want to work with, and also what function you want to apply. Here we aggregate the values. You can add filters and edit your formats. Let's now go back to the categories. Here we have a category called Value Type. These are different codes representing revenues and costs. But let's rename these so that they are easier to understand. For that, I go back to Prepare mode. I select my dimension Value Type, and I edit it directly in the table. When I now move back to my transaction data, I see that the changes have been applied, and I also see them in my analysis. Let's look at the list analysis we did before, and also in the pivot analysis. You can now switch categories as you like, and also add categories on top of each other. Here we have the product categories, and if we want to see them by employee, we can add that. If we want to split the values over time, let's say, we can add a category in the other direction. Let's select the time period, let's say years, or we can also look at weekdays to have the sales for each day of the week. In this company, no one seems to work on Wednesdays. When you find a value that stands out, you can always drill down to see the rows behind that value. Just right-click and drill down to list analysis, for instance. Here we have all the rows that makes up that aggregated value. Let's go back to our pivot analysis and have a look at the costs. We add a filter to the amounts by selecting value type and one of the cost accounts. We can now drill down on one of these values and drill down to a pivot analysis. When we add vendors as a category, we can see all the vendors that makes up these costs. We want to see all of the values in use for these amounts. To understand more which vendors these actually are, let's add another table with this information. I just add the file with the data as usually. I go to Prepare to see that my relation was identified. And when I now move back to Analyze, I can change that vendor to the vendor name. And I can see which vendor is associated with the biggest cost by sorting the amounts. You've now seen how easy it is to add another data source on the fly, how LEANalyser connected it with the other data sources, and how quickly it took effect in the analysis. Let's now pretend that our amounts for the different customers in the different countries are actually in local currencies. To get this right, we need to convert these values into a common currency, in this case Swedish crowns. I need currency rates for that, so I just go to a website where I can find those. Drag and drop the URL to the navigation panel to create a new table with currency rates. To be sure that I have the currency rates for all the countries in my customer register, I set the customer's country field into a dimension to get a list over all the countries I need. To speed up this demo a bit, I prepared an Excel file with those conversions, a list with all countries and their currency code. Let's import that Excel file. And create a relation with the customer table. We can reach the currency rates from our transactional data. We now have everything to define our amounts in Swedish crowns. Let's call this field amount in local currency so that we don't mix them up. Then we add another field with our currency rates. We select them via the relation like this. Let's add the countries of the customers as well. And finally make a calculated field with the amounts in local currencies times the currency rate. When scrolling down, we realize that the values are missing for the Swedish customers. This is because the currency rates table doesn't have a conversion for Swedish crowns. Let's just add a row with the Swedish crowns into the table. Add it to the database. And we now see that the amounts in Swedish crowns are consistent. Let's move back to the analysis and add the amounts in Swedish crowns to have a consistent analysis. If you wish so, you can always save your analysis and set the data to automatically update within every 5 minutes, every hour, or every day. Thank you for listening to this walkthrough in LEANalyser, and if you want to have more information, please visit our website leanalyser.com. Thank you.